This is The Download from Sounds Profitable, the most important news from this week and why it matters to people in the business of podcasting. I'm Newton Chadalkotty.
And I'm Gavin Gaddis.
The Download is brought to you by Podscribe. Find out more at podscribe.com.
This week, what Liquid Death can teach podcasting. Podcasting is coming to Advertising Week, updates to Apple Podcasts, and where we go after Chartable. Let's get started. This Wednesday from Tom Webster at Sounds Profitable. Back in September, Tom took to the podcast movement keynote stage with an unassuming can in hand, a 12-ounce white can of still water. It felt wrong. In late 2018, Liquid Death burst onto the scene, selling sparkling and still water in 19.2-ounce tall boy cans. Their branding and general aesthetic features irreverent language and intentionally grotesque artwork befitting of 90s punk show posters. In a crowded seltzer market, providing water in a tall boy that provides enough liquid to murder your thirst set Liquid Death apart from the pack, a water brand that allowed non-drinkers to still fit in at social events, holding a can that could easily pass for an edgy hard seltzer or energy drink at a glance. At Podcast Movement, Webster first encountered Liquid Death in the standard 12-ounce can Universal 2 soda. In the same can every Tom, Dick, and LaCroix comes in, Liquid Death loses its unique spark. A quote from Webster, quote, "I think about this in the current era of podcasting, where video has surged in importance for discovery, and YouTube has become the most commonly used platform for podcast consumption. For podcasters who produce an audio podcast, it presents a dilemma. Do I change the can so I can sell my podcast in more machines? Or do I stay with audio and close off that potential discovery opportunity?" End quote. Webster passes along wisdom his mother shared when he scratched at a childhood mosquito bite. Don't make it worse. Instead, Webster calls for audio-focused areas of podcasting to double down on what makes audio special as a medium. Audio is a companion medium. Audio can follow you throughout your day, your commute, your chores, in ways video simply can't. An audio podcast can play throughout doing the dishes, taking a walk, and taking out the trash without the illusion breaking once. Audio takes advantage of the listener's imagination, more so than the reality that video can capture. A quote from Webster. Quote, "Ultimately, video is a key to getting your content in more vending machines and potentially in front of a much larger audience. That's just a fact, but don't change your can if it ruins the contents." End quote.
Advertising Week New York kicks off on Monday, October 7th, and this year features a batch of podcasting-related panels and talks in and around the podcast zone, dedicated to the industry. We're providing a link to every panel related to podcasting on the schedule, but here's a rundown of some of the highlights to look forward to. On Wednesday, Spotify sponsors playlists to podcasts, unpacking what's new and next with Gen Z culture. On the marketplace stage that same day, a podcast host and a sales manager walk into a bar, features SoundStack CRO Rocky Thomas chatting with Ira Glass of This American Life and Scott Davis of SVP and NPR sponsorship about bridging the divide between the creative and business side of podcasting. At midday on Thursday, Tom Webster takes to the podcast zone for The Evolution of the Podcast Audience, a half-hour presentation of research from the podcast landscape, demonstrating how podcasting's audience has changed over time. The Power of Family Podcasts, Unlocking Untapped Potential for Advertisers, will focus on the power of kids and family podcast advertising, featuring Jerry Colbert, Atomic Entertainment Group, Benjamin Salka, Story Pirates, Jed Baker, Starglow Media, and Molly Barton, Realm. Going Global, Unlocking the International Podcast Market, presented by Next Broadcast Media, will discuss expanding reach beyond the U.S. Panelists include NBM's Lemia Soltani, Brian Barletta of Sounds Profitable, Anne Frisbee of AdSwiz, John Sardellis of Barometer, and Stephen Abraham of Oxford Road. Beyond Impressions, How Pixel Attribution is Revolutionizing Podcast Advertising, will discuss podcasting's ability to measure and track with the same precision as digital channels with pixel-based attribution. Panelists include Amelia Coomber of Podscribe, Cassandra LaPrairie of Wise, Grant Durando of Right Side Up, Giancarlo Bizzarro of Crooked Media, and Matt Barr of Faring. And the fun doesn't stop within the confines of Advertising Week. On Wednesday, October 9th, YMH Studios, in collaboration with Red Circle, Podscribe, and Sounds Profitable, will be taking over New York Comedy Club for industry networking, followed by stand-up from comedian podcasters. Space for this exclusive event is extremely limited, so apply at the link in the newsletter as soon as possible for consideration.
This week has brought a couple changes to Apple's podcasting ecosystem that increases discoverability and accessibility. Early in the week, Apple launched a new section called Series. Limited-run serialized podcasts have played a big part in the podcasting industry, but have a difficult time surfacing when up against perennial shows that upload weekly. This new genre-agnostic section aims to solve for that. In addition, a new top podcasting chart has just been added for Series. In Apple's announcement blog, they also provide a list of best practices for presenting serialized podcasts to get current and existing shows ready for the new area. Then on Thursday, Pod News reported automatically generated podcast transcripts on Apple Podcasts have been updated to include 8 new languages, those being Swedish, Danish, Norwegian, Finnish, Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, Italian, and Dutch. The official Apple Podcast transcript blog post also notes the system has the ability to detect when more than one language is spoken in an episode and switch on the fly.
Last Friday, from Bumper's Dan Misner, it has been announced that Chartable will be shuttered as of December of this year. Misner reflects on the history of Chartable and its place in the industry with pioneering features like smart links and smart promos. While there is no one-size-fits-all third-party replacement for Chartable, the Bumper team has spent time testing replacement options over the summer, expecting the inevitable Chartable closure announcement. Misner's post is broken down by section, with each section focusing on a feature within Chartable that can be replaced by solutions tested by the Bumper team. In this sundowning period, Sounds Profitable is working closely with our partners to arrange the best deals and migration solutions possible for partner companies before Chartable fully shuts down. For up-to-date details as this development progresses, we recommend partner companies keep tabs on the official Sounds Profitable Slack server.
Finally, it's time for our quick hits. These are articles that didn't make the cut for today's episode, but are still worth including in your weekend reading. This week, Libsyn unveils September 2024 podcast advertising rates. The latest monthly average CPM, that's cost per 1,000 impressions, for a 60-second podcast ad on Libsyn Ads was $21.37. Earn It, Unconventional Strategies for Brave Marketers by Steve Pratt. Pacific Content founder Steve Pratt has launched a new book. 2024 Listener's Choice now open. The Signal Awards are now taking votes for the audience-voted Listener's Choice Award. And finally, Fan Study Podcast Edition, Video Insights to Elevate Your Content Strategy. This new edition of the Fan Study Podcast Edition on Spotify finds 40% of Spotify users who streamed a new show in 2024 chose video podcast as the delivery method.
And that was the download brought to you by Sounds Profitable. I know we went through today's stories fast, so be sure to check out the links to every article mentioned right in your podcast listening app or on the download section of soundsprofitable.com. And thank you for sticking with us as we bring you the top stories you might have missed from the past week. I'm Newton Shalvakati.
And I'm Gavin Gaddis. Our producers are myself, Newton Shalvakati, Brian Barletta, and Tom Webster. Special thanks to Spreaker for hosting the download, and thanks to you for joining us. Robot?
Download complete.